Now that tanks are rebalanced with their new passive and armor, playing for the solo carry is also different. Some DPS deal more damage while others deal less, and the heal reduction passive is also back to 20%, so even supports have new changes to adjust to. The latest hotfix and the mid-season patch didn't even have that many changes, but they were definitely really impactful. So let's get into the new best solo carry heroes for mid-season 10, starting off with the freshly buffed Echo. She already has some of the best abilities for solo controlling the game, and now her duplicate is in a very strong state. It was already strong, even with the lower charge rate, and now it's even better. Ever since it got rebalanced, it was noticeably weaker. Being faster to charge is really good for a second life type ultimate, but building the copied ult got a lot slower. Now that the copied charge rate has been buffed, it's just enough that you can always charge up at least one ultimate, and that makes her dive so much better on the regular. Now her ultimate engages are both stronger and come up more often, and Echo's other abilities are already top notch for any game situation. A lot of other heroes are specialized in flanking or spamming or brawling, but Echo can manage all three easily. She has the mobility to dive fast or fly to uncontestable spam angles, her projectile damage is decent burst at close range and unavoidable spam at long range, and she even has explosive damage to punish stacked teams. Combined with her duplicate, she can go super aggressive with no hesitation. The only thing close to a weakness that Echo has is that her hitbox is bigger than average, but combined with instant flight mobility, it's easy to avoid getting caught. Solo carrying isn't just about winning the game for your team, but also staying alive on your own. If you're looking to rank up on your favorite heroes, check out the link in the description below to get access to a GameLeap membership. There are tons of guides and courses that can level up your game and help you get better, faster. Make sure to check it out and enjoy the video. Next on the list is one of the best supports, Baptiste. Carrying as a healer is its own challenge, because not only do you have to make plays for your team, but you also have to keep your team topped up. In Bab's case, he's so good at healing and saving that you can put more focus into dealing effective damage. He's one of the easiest heroes to carry with, because if you're just allowed to do whatever you want, your healing and damage will stack up really high. And because his damage and self-heal burst is so strong, forcing his abilities is pretty much impossible without committing to the engage. The vertical mobility you get with Exo Boots help a lot with giving access to high grounds. You can bait and switch positions or quickly return to high ground after getting forced out. Although he's a more defensive carry pick, his ultimate covers that weakness. Amplification Matrix makes you the best DPS and the best support in the game, on top of boosting the rest of your team as well. It's one of the best ultimates in the game because of its versatility, compared to other support ultimates that are mostly limited to enabling or sustaining the team. There's no doubt that it's easier to kill Bap now compared to early seasons where he had even more self-healing and even shorter cooldowns, but he's an amazing duelist and an even better healer, able to handle any pressure coming his way. Baptiste is one of the best heroes for managing the game all by herself, but when it comes to solo carrying games, of course Cassidy has to be here. He's the best DPS right now overall because of his solo carry potential. At this point, everyone's used to him double tapping with headshots, but it doesn't make him easier to play against. If you're within his range, you can get killed insanely fast. Even without the instant 2-shot kill, Cassidy's damage is so reliable that whenever you're not faced with a shield or matrix, you're already winning the fight. Tanks being more resistant to headshots might seem like it would make it harder, but Cass is also better into armor. When it comes to tank busting, he's still really strong, and headshots into armor actually do more damage than the previous patch anyway. While other damage heroes have mobility and high burst abilities to help them carry hard, Cass has a more brute force approach. He tanks hard and he shoots hard. He's got the double 75 buff, the 275 HP, and 75% damage reduction on his roll. Nothing about his neutral has changed since last patch, except the fact that Tracer isn't all powerful anymore. You can always play super aggressive looking for picks when your roll can bail you out of any situation, and it works perfectly as a defensive cooldown to avoid getting bursted when you're expecting an aggressive engage. Normally Cass would be weak to brawl comps that can run him over, since roll doesn't actually move you very far, it just soaks damage for you. But with Magnetic Grenade, you can always hinder and slow players chasing you, outside of the normal use of shutting down flankers. As if he needed to be even better at dueling, the grenade is perfect for setting up an even bigger advantage. Moving on to one of the tank carries, it can be pretty rough this patch. Most tanks deal less damage to other tanks, which is a big part of carrying. You need to be able to handle as many matchups as possible, and that's where Ramatra is still the best. Just like how Bap can heal a team by himself, Ram can hold off a team by himself. He's finally become what the devs intended, a tempo tank with a really solid mix between spamming and brawling. Although pretty much every tank plays for tempo in some form, Ram's instant value with all his abilities make him extra strong. His shield sets you and your team up for any aggressive move, while also being able to soak all the initial pressure from an enemy hard push. Ram's Omnic Form damage with his staff into other tanks may be worse than before, but it's still projectile spam, the ideal damage for spamming corners and damaging enemies as they walk up. As for making aggressive plays and just winning teamfights on your own, stacking your abilities as Ram makes for an insanely strong push. Usually you don't want to use your shield and form at the same time because you'll have nothing left when your form ends after 7 seconds, but fights can be won and lost in those 7 seconds. Ideally, you don't want to be blocking for most of your form. Punching is much better, so using your shield to punch for free for more than half your form is intense pressure, and combined with Ram's slow, the only option for the enemy team is to either leave or try to push through your vortex. And as for getting picks offensively without using all your cooldowns at once, Ram's punches are insanely strong in the mid-fight. They go through all shields and matrix abilities, only being stopped by Orissa's Javelin Spin and Gage's Deflect, and those are abilities that you can force. And he's got range, 10.5 meters, which is crazy good combined with his increased base speed. He may not have gotten a damage upgrade in Season 9, but considering how versatile the punches are, he definitely doesn't need it to have a massive impact on mid-fight kills. Moving on to the third DPS on the list, it's Ashe. At this point, Sojourn has been a solo carry pick for so long that she's an obvious pick, so it's a good thing that the meta is finally opening up a bit, allowing Ashe to step in with her long-range pick potential and dynamite pressure. She's a really strong hero. She just has normal weaknesses that any long-range sniper type should have, like a long cooldown on her only movement ability. And even so, Coach Gun has knockback utility that can even deal up to 90 damage. What makes Ashe so good at solo carrying is just the simple combination of her long-range headshot damage and her dynamite. She can 2-tap just like Cassidy can, just not as fast. But she can also do it from 10 meters further. Only past 35 meters do you need 3 shots to finish. Sojourn has her railgun shot and more dynamic movement, but Ashe has more consistent burst at range, even if it takes more skill. As for her dynamite, it's one of the best abilities in the game, and it's only gotten better now that the 20% heal reduction passive is back. It deals up to 150 damage, most of it being burn damage over time, and that only makes the heal reduction stick around for longer. It may be a 12-second cooldown, but the burn lasts for 5 seconds. You either force a cleanse or the enemy team has to chill out, and both of those options are positive outcomes. Kiriko has really made Ashe a lot less favorable, but she still has all her strengths, especially when it comes to Bob, one of the best DPS ultimates. It only adds to her AoE damage with Bob's uppercut, and because it's so much burst, only tanks can survive the follow-up. Next up is newly buffed Junker Queen. Before Season 9, she was a really effective all-rounder tank. Her counters have always been counter-playable, so now that Queen has a shorter shout cooldown and more flexibility on when to use it, she's back in business. She's better than all the other tanks at instantly confirming damage. Her scattergun has a good enough range that you can dual DPS on the sidelines, especially combined with her knife. No other tank has such instant burst, the closest being Sigma, who has projectiles. Even if they're easier to hit, they're clearly worse than scattergun for forcing out heroes like Genji and Tracer, and he can't hold close corners as well as Queen can either. As for Queen's counters, she mostly struggles into tanks that can stop her from walking. They definitely limit her aggressive pushes, but you can also just not care. Queen spam neutral is strong enough that you can just hit every shot and take space that way. You don't even need to force an aggressive carnage move until you force enough abilities to do so. If you 3-2-1 shout push into a ram with all his abilities, it's obviously going to be pretty difficult. But thanks to Queen's headshot potential and decent range, forcing abilities is second nature. Solo carrying as Queen is a lot easier now, and you can even feel more comfortable using shout to kite. 2 seconds less on the cooldown means you can use it aggressively more often, but it also means you can use it defensively to survive and engage without locking yourself out of the fight for as long. Next is the most obvious best support carry pick, Kiriko. There isn't really a better option when she herself has so many options. And that's on top of having some of the most uncounterable abilities in the game. Even when you're defending as Kiriko, you can hit the flank and pressure with headshots. Spamming kunais down main and pocketing your team is a pretty default playstyle, but if you really want to solo carry, you'll want to maximize your off-angle pressure. The enemy tank will always defend damage coming from main anyway, so when you can flank for headshots, it's almost always worth it. Punishing a Kiriko for using her teleport is also insanely hard. Getting caught early fight is almost impossible, so you can get away with a lot. Kiriko can also be even better than Lucio at supporting duels. Just teleporting in for a Suzu can turn any fight. For example, keeping an eye on your Tracer will make it super easy to ensure she always wins, even if she's out of your LOS. Kiriko's mobility combined with both her burst damage and healing makes her so good at responding to situations all around the map. If you want to solo carry as a support in any situation, she's still the ultimate pick. And finally, for a nice wholesome finish, we've got Winston. Not unlike Kiriko, he also has the abilities to support fights all over the map. It's a pretty common misconception that you always have to set up a one-shot dive. With a 5-second jump cooldown, there's no rush. You can solo carry your whole team by constantly getting value with your bubble without dying. Every game is different, so sometimes it'll be more ideal to cleave stacked enemies or punish isolated targets, but as long as you're consistently disrupting, you'll be winning the game for your team. Trading abilities and draining the enemy team's resources is the best way to reliably win the game as a tank, and when you're a massive gorilla that everybody loves to focus, it's really easy to get the enemy team to overfocus you. It's just about staying alive, zapping enemies, and hitting good bubbles. 12 seconds isn't that long for how good bubble is, even when you're just using it to shield your team forward like Ramattra would. It is only 350 health less, and Winston's damage is a lot better than Ram's in close range, even against his punches. The armor piercing makes a big difference. That's it for the best solo carry heroes for mid-season 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.